Hello, everyone. It's great to be here today. Welcome to the 16th episode of My Design Journey, hosted by Just Design. Just Design is a community with the aim of democratizing design. We do this by hosting a series of conversations in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. Today, we are having a seasoned architect in the person of architect Kelechi Onyike. He is the managing partner, co-founder of Podec Associates. I've known him now for I think about 13, 14 years. He's a seasoned architect, and I'm sure it will make a wonderful presentation, and there'll be a lot to learn. After his presentation, there'll be a session of questions and answers, and I'm sure all of us will learn a lot from him. Shortly, we'll have his profile on, and then we'll have Architect Kelechi. Thank you very much for being here today. It's an honor to be your host. I'm Gbenga Alalade. Thank you very much.
Kelechi Onyike is an architect, artist, career coach, and mentor. He is a co-founder and managing director of Podec Associates Limited, an architecture and creative design practice based in Lagos, Nigeria. He was the best graduating student of the Department of Architecture and Faculty of Environmental Studies, University of Nigeria, UNN, in 2001. He also holds a master's degree in architecture from UNN and a certificate in entrepreneurial management from the Enterprise Development Center, EDC, Pan Atlantic University, owners of Lagos Business School, Lagos. He is an alumnus of the Unconventional School of Politics, Policy, and Government, SPPG. Kelechi received a State Merit Award for distinguished service to the nation after his NYSC in Nasarawa State in 2005. He is a full member of the Nigerian Institute of Architects, NIA, and is registered with the Architects Registration Council of Nigeria, ARCON. As a strong designer, Kelechi has led different design teams to win keenly contested architectural design competitions, including the New Dawn Baptist Church, Oniru, 2010, high-rise development on Glover Road, Ikoyi, 2018, the headquarters of the Petroleum Technology Association of Nigeria, PTAN, Port Harcourt, in 2019, Akion Microfinance Bank headquarters, Ikorodu Road, Lagos, 2019, and Total Energies Innovation Hub, Lagos and Port Harcourt, 2022. He has also led the design of numerous other projects for a variety of residential and commercial developments. He also has experience in graphic design and the extensive use of artistic media. His interests include art, writing, motivational speaking, meeting people, and traveling. He is passionate about capacity development, collaborative work, and entrepreneurship. He is also a volunteer facilitator with the Faith Foundation. He has been a teacher, mentor, and minister at the Young Adults Church, RCCG Powerhouse in Bagata, Lagos, since 2009. He is married to Ugochi and they have 3 children.
Good evening, Architect Gbenga.
Good evening, Architect Kelechi.
Nice. Very well, thank you. Nice to see you again.
Same here, same here. And I can see you are somewhere far away in Malaysia.
Yes.
I'll come and join you for the next session.
You should be here. You should be here. It's been amazing at the International Architects Association conference here in Malaysia. It's been amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, you should be joining us for things like this. It's really a great experience.
I will.
Yeah. In fact, if we had started this call maybe an hour ago, you would have seen the Petronas towers lit up behind me.
Oh,
So yeah,
okay.
my hotel room windows back in part of the city skyline, and there's a Petronas tower, such a fantastic view. Every architect would love to see this. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's great learning, traveling, and all that is part of learning, and I'm
Oh,
absolutely
yes,
love
it
it.
is. It is. It is. It is architect.
Okay, so
You have the floor.
am I ready to? Okay, I can go on, right? I can share my
Please,
slide and carry on.
please, please do.
Okay, all right. So I can't. Are you able to tell who is online, who's watching? Because I can't tell
Oh,
from.
yes. Yes, yes, don't
Okay,
worry. You can do that. You're
okay,
in the studio. So
okay.
once
All
you
right,
start
all right. So,
speaking, you say in the
all
comment
right. So,
comment.
good evening, everyone. It's such an honor to do this. Thank you, Dr. Gbenga, for the invitation, and I'm so delighted, um, to do this. So, I'll share my screen shortly. Okay. Confirm you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? I can't hear you. Dr. Gbenga, are you there? I can't hear you.
Okay. Yes, I think I was off the studio. Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, all right, great, great. Glad. All right, so my architecture journey. So yeah, from the profile I read, you can tell I'm sure I've been introduced as the MD of Podex Associates, and we've been in business since 2013. And the screen here just shows some of our clients. We've been privileged to work for a number of institutional clients, and we've also worked for a lot of private clients. But for confidentiality, we typically wouldn't disclose private clients, in presentations of this nature. But I'll just go back to where it started for me, where it really started for me as far as architecture is concerned. So I would say it was my dad. That's my dad's picture at the bottom right. It was my dad who first hinted the idea to me who suggested to me to study architecture. I used to like to draw. When I was in nursery school and even into primary school, I used to like to draw. And so my dad, I think I was fortunate to have that kind of father who, tried to look at the strengths of his children. So he recognized I like to draw, and then suggested to me that maybe you could study architecture or art. And then, so for a while it was between art and architecture. And then he later on said to me, well, he later on suggested to me further that I probably stood a better chance of being more comfortable financially studying architecture. So I think I kind of narrowed down. So I made up my mind as far back as primary school to study architecture. And so that's where my love came, and the focus has just remained the same. I never really looked back. I used to have a few things with friends in school then. I always had this, even from those times. Interestingly, looking back and watching my journey, I see a pattern. So when I was in primary school, I had this group that I formed with some of my friends. It was called the Duco Brothers. We used to like to draw stuff and stick on the classroom, little cartoons, just little things like cartoons and stuff on the wall until we got into trouble. Then in secondary school, I had a group, it was called the Kudem Connection. Just young boys, just that thing. We just draw to just be in groups like that. And then in university, I had a group called the Bricklayers, and by this time it was kind of more focused towards work. Actually, we used to do stickers, do banners, do a lot of creative stuff in school. So there had always been that thing of being a creative, and not just being a creative. There was also an inclination always to form groups. I always had this inclination to want to do things with people. That was just my style. So unfortunately, I lost my dad last year. He was 83. So what is and then interestingly, my daughter is also showing signs of creativity, and she has suggested she might want to study architecture or maybe something related to creativity, but we'll see and see where that goes. But it's just interesting to see how life moves in cycles. Okay, so I studied architecture at UNN, University of Nigeria, New Campus. Here is picture from my final MSc final design. I designed the National Museum of Nigerian History. So aside from the love for architecture, I also have a passion for Nigeria, a passion for making a difference in Nigeria. So this design thesis kind of brought together two passions, architecture and, Nigeria, making a difference in Nigeria. So I had this design for a Museum of Nigerian History. Around that time, I used to read, there was this architect, this Chinese-American architect that inspired me greatly, I.M. Pei. He designed East Building of the National Gallery of Art in the US and a number of very outstanding buildings across the world. And it was a big influence on me, and he had a minimalist style. And it was reflected in my MSc thesis. I was designing this museum. My intention was to see how we could take elements from Nigeria's arts and tie them into architecture. So I tried to use very international forms, but then through the materials, use a bit of bronze, a little bit of things that look like hand stitches, just show how stitches inspired by the weaving of fabric from northern Nigeria. I was trying to, fuse that into an expression within architecture. So that was my MSc presentation. Interestingly, this presentation didn't go too well. This work was, I did the presentation then in watercolor. We inked the sheets and then used watercolor, a monochrome watercolor to ink my sheets. Then those were the days before we really got, computers were just coming in. We're not a mainstream. Schools didn't really allow the use of computers, so it was mostly hand drawn. It was entirely hand drawn, actually, hand drawn, inked, and then painted on alabaster cardboard, used watercolor. I still like the work, right? But interestingly, during the presentation, it didn't go too well. The external juror at the time said that my work looked very international, but it didn't necessarily look Nigerian enough, and so I didn't get the very best grade, and that was very disappointing for me. But I moved on from that. Yeah, but my time in school was a great experience learning at UNN, and then shortly after that, I went on to Nasarawa State, where I served, doing my NYSC, and still talking about my passion for Nigeria. I won a State Merit Award, NYSC, and then afterwards I came out, and I remember in my yearbook, there's this yearbook we had in the NCF, in the NYSC program. And then I just wrote, they asked, what do you want to be in the future? And I wrote, I want to be a world-class architect. And I was determined to go and try and work for the best, right? And build a foundation. My idea was that if you really want to build something that is going to be big, then you have to invest time building a strong foundation. So I kind of went to Abuja. I thought, okay, I grew up in Owerri. UNN was in Enugu State, and then I moved out to the big city. I figured if I wanted to practice architecture at its best, I should probably be in Lagos or Abuja. I didn't like Lagos. I thought Lagos had too much traffic, so Abuja seemed more like it. And then it was close to Nasarawa. I had family there. So I moved to Abuja. I started off with an interior design company. I worked less than a year there, and I just knew this wasn't for me because I didn't feel sufficiently challenged. The environment was not the most accommodating, but the experience was interesting. I did a few months there, then moved on to an engineering company. But while I was in Abuja, I was searching for a proper architecture practice, and there weren't too many in Abuja. A lot of people practicing, but not practicing architecture at the highest level where I could really learn. And so I took on the job with Brunel Engineering, which is a construction company, as a transition job while trying to find that firm. All that time, and applications kept coming in from Lagos. Do you want to come to Lagos? But I didn't want to go to Lagos. But eventually, after about a year and a half in Abuja, I think I recognized that if I really wanted to learn from the best, then I would need to move to Lagos. And so I moved to Lagos in 2007 and joined A2 Architects. And my time in A2 Architects was fantastic. I was immersed in a lot of learning. I just felt like this was the right place to be, the right environment. I was learning so much. And I believe that for any architect who truly wants to thrive, where you start practice is key. It's very crucial. Then I just said, I got in there, I understood professional practice. I understood running projects with proper contractors, running projects, the kind of things we used to learn in professional practice in school. I saw them at work there. I was exposed to multinational clients. I was exposed to top quality consultants. So it was just a lot of learning. As I was there for almost 6 years. One of the projects I worked on was this marine terminal building at the bottom left of this slide. It was for the NLNG. So I went to Bonny Island, designed this terminal. It was supposed to look like a boat Just kind of docked on the full picture. If you saw the full picture, this terminal was just by the water, so just had that thing of like a ship docked at the water. That's one of the projects I did. And then at the top right was a sketch we did for a competition entry in ATO. Then it was called the New Dawn Baptist Church. So yeah, it was great work we're doing there. And so while working in ATO, I was privileged to work on a particular project where we were collaborating with a firm called Manning Architects in New Orleans in USA. And that experience working with them, we used to have, those were days before Zoom and Teams. So we used to have phone calls on a daily basis. We had a design charrette, which meant I traveled with my boss then to the US, to New Orleans, and had a design charrette with the team over there. And then when we got back to Nigeria, we used to have almost daily phone calls where we kind of update each other on how the work was going. And it was an interesting way of working. And it was a light bulb moment for me because prior to that time in ATO, the way I was used to working was when there was a project, it could be assigned to me or assigned to somebody or assigned to any other person in the office, right? And then you just do the work independently, then you bring it to your supervisor who will review and then, give you some comments and then you go and work again. So there was a lot of independent work, right? That's how we were working at the time. But I was fascinated with the way these guys worked in this office, Manning Architects, and I saw that on any given project, they kind of split it into specialized areas. So there'll be a lead designer, and there'll be a number of other people who'll be supporting and playing various specialized roles within the team. Somebody was working on documentation, somebody was working on the report, somebody was working on CAD, somebody was working on visualization and all of that. And I was fascinated because when we completed the initial concept and the package was like maybe an 80-page design report, I was just impressed with the quality of work, not just the final visuals, but the reporting, the narration, the build-up, even hand sketches, photographs, pictures from our design charrette, different things were in it. It was just like a light bulb moment for me. And I just realized that when you work that way, you produce a lot more. And so shortly after, our office had a design competition, and I told the team, and we were about to do it the old way, like have one person do it. I said to some of my teammates that we can't do this competition this way. And so I spoke to the person who was assigned the job. I said, "Guy, look, let's do this differently." And so somehow within the team, I wasn't like a senior team member. I was like middle level at that point, but I did have some kind of influence. So I put together a few of the younger architects and said, "You know what, let's do this differently." And so we kind of structured ourselves to work similar to what I had seen Manning Architects do. And we entered this competition and we came up with something that was quite phenomenal. I mean, compared to what we had been doing in the firm that time. The way we integrated hand sketches, the way we integrated the build-up, the storytelling, the reporting. Somebody worked on case studies, some other people worked on design development. I worked on concept design. Some other people worked on design development. We're like 6-7 people on it. And by the time we finished, the report was, I remember my boss looking at the work and saying, "Wow, this is very, very impressive." And so we won that competition, right? New Dawn Baptist Church, the idea was inspired by leaves, like a budding plant germinating from the ground and the way the leaves open up. And so you see the sketch at the top here. And then this was the 3D we did at the time. And the church building is almost complete. It's taking a long time to build. Sometimes church buildings take that long. But it was like a shift for me in the way I think. Here's the New Dawn Baptist Church building today. It's down somewhere opposite Landmark. I think for funding, it hasn't really been completed. It's taken quite a while now. This is almost 12 years, but this for me was a major change. And from then on, this is how I've always approached work. Even for the remaining time I had at ATO and beyond ATO, this is how I always approached work. So we started Podex Associates in 2013. So that's when my time in ATO came to an end. And then together with 3 other people, one of them working full time, and then 2 others were just silent partners. We started Podex Associates in 2013. And I showed you earlier on some of the clients over that period. And a lot of what we've done in Podex was influenced by the experience I had in ATO, just understanding that from day one, you need to be focused on not just turning out projects, but actually building a structure, building a company. And I always say to the people on my team that we're building a world-class business. So that was our focus from day one. Let's build a world-class business. And so it wasn't just about great work. It was also about great processes, great systems, great storage of documentation, of information retrieval, and just setting up a business that could very well be any other kind of business. So I must mention that I'm not just passionate about great design, I'm also passionate about great business operations. Did some courses, built some skills. So that's one thing many architects lack, an understanding of how businesses should run. It's not enough. Talent's not enough. I read one of my favorite books from John Maxwell. It says that talent's not enough. So I'll just say a thing or two about Podex. So in Podex, we're focused on hiring great talent. We're very, very intentional about who joins the team. We look for great talent. And when I say talent, I'm not necessarily looking for one skill alone. We look for a lot of complementary skills. I tend to use football as a reference in the way the team is structured, because I recognize that you can't build a team with attackers alone. You can't build a team with defenders alone. You can't build a team with midfielders alone. You need a complementary squad of a good goalkeeper, good defenders, good midfielders, good attackers. And so that's kind of how we try to structure our team. And so within the team, there are people who are like go-getters, people who just know how to deliver. They know how to meet deadlines, right? I mean, they're sort of people who are very organized, very quick decision-making, just that sort of strength. And there are people who are very creative. I found that sometimes the most creative people sometimes struggle with deadlines, right? So we have people who are very creative on our team, and they're also complemented by people who sometimes just know when to say, all right, let's stop, let's go. And then there are people who tend to be strong with research, strong with different analysis, reporting and stuff like that. So we have a complementary skill. Now, the pictures you see here are, this was as of 2020, December 2022. A few faces have changed, and this hasn't been updated, but this is just kind of in a nutshell. So I think of some of my players as defenders, and some as midfielders, and some as attackers. So the young architects out there, sometimes it's good for you to understand where your strengths lie. I think of people who, like I said, are great at just getting the job done. Those kind of guys who, no matter how clients and teachers set the no matter when you set the jury date for, they're always ready. Those kind of guys are like attackers for me, guys who know how to get the job done. And the midfielders are like the creative guys, guys who you can just give a sketch or give a clue, and they can just kind of churn out something interesting. And then for me, defenders are people who kind of help us to protect our bottom line. It could be sometimes the support staff who are not necessarily architects. It could also be architects who who are very meticulous with documentation. So if we have compliance documents, we have reports we need to write. If we have certain kinds of documentation, certain kind of bids that we participate in, those sort of people are kind of defensive players. And so that's kind of how we put our team together. I look for diversity. I try to have different kinds of people, sometimes different schools, and then have a structure. And then we try to also have open communication, which means that we encourage people to speak about their ideas. We tell people not to hold back too much about, don't feel bad if your work is critiqued. We tell people that feedback is the breakfast of champions. And so I encourage my team members not to feel personal about it. It's about the work. It's not about you. It's not about your ego. And so for us, it's the best idea that wins. It's not the MD's idea. It's not the most senior person's idea. It's the best idea. Anybody, an intern can bring the best idea. And if that's the best idea, that's the idea that wins. And that's how Podex is structured. I'll go on to talk a little bit about some of our projects. So this was a competition winning entry in 2018. This was a high-rise building in Ikoyi. That pattern I had spoken about earlier, about putting together a team, different people doing different things. So the client wanted something that was really out of the box, very unconventional. It was a high-rise, multi mixed use, so a bit of commercial, but mostly residential, high-rise in Ikoyi. So we won this competition. An interesting thing about this competition was that we were competing against ATO, my former employers, and then we were also competing against James Cubitt. And interestingly, my former boss, ATO, worked with James Cubitt, in the 80s. So it felt like winning against your father and your grandfather. And this was kind of like a very interesting moment for us in 2018. It just felt like we had come to a point where we could actually, compete against some of the established firms. So this was very gratifying. Unfortunately, the client didn't proceed with building, even though we won. And I know that sometimes in the course of practice, you get to see that a lot of the designs, quite a significant amount of designs we do may not necessarily make it to stage 3. But if you do a lot, you still have quite a good number make it to stage 3. We've been fortunate to have quite a few, get to stage 3, but not all have. And this, unfortunately, was one of those that didn't make it that far. But it continues to be one of the fascinating ones we've done. And it has actually influenced a number of other projects that we've done thereafter. And then this is another competition we won shortly after that one. Again, still, pulling together as a team, ensuring that, different guys were playing their parts, working very intensively. So PETAN is the Petroleum Technology Association of Nigeria. It's a group of indigenous guys in the oil and gas industry. They had this property, I think about 10,000 square meters or so, somewhere in Port Harcourt, called the Greater Port Harcourt area. So they commissioned a design competition nationwide, advertised in the dailies, and invited us to participate, anonymous submissions. And our entry was shortlisted. Among the top 3, we made a presentation, and after that, we won the competition as well. And we completed the design, working drawings and all of that, got paid our fees. Then I think the client at some point decided to change their strategy and put the project on hold. Later on, they suggested that they might downscale it and so on. But that conversation hasn't really progressed much since then. But the work was fully completed. I think even approval drawings were obtained. But this was another very exciting moment for us when we won this competition against a lot of established firms. Then this was another interesting project, Lemoria Residencies, and I think it was in 2016 or so. I was just standing with a structural engineer on a site, and we were just kind of reviewing some work, and then he got a call from somebody who he knew, and then this client said to him that he's looking for an architect who can design something, blah, 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 and then the engineer said, I'm standing right next to him. And so the engineer connected us, which is very, very interesting because most times we are the ones who connect engineers. But on this project, it was the structural engineer who connected us to the client. And so we started the design in 2016. We moved to 2016, also 2015. I can't remember very certainly, 2015 or 2016, one of those two. And then I think we moved to site around 2017, thereabouts. And then it was completed in 2020. So Lemoria was 3 blocks, 56 apartments in total. We kind of worked on the composition in a way that we didn't just want to have like a prototype block replicated 3 times. We tried to create something that looked like an interesting composition where the buildings try to complement each other. Let me see if we have other pictures. Okay, I don't have too many pictures of that on this slide, but if you check on our website, you see more pictures of this. So the 3 blocks were kind of different, but they were designed in a way that they felt like 3 parts of a set. That was the idea. A few things changed during the construction, and that's something you'll find in practice, that sometimes as you go to sites, a few things change. So the top 2 floors were initially intended to be like a maisonette, and so there was some recess up there. But in the course of the work, the client's brief changed, and then we just made them apartments all the way up on this block you're looking at here. And then there was something that I used to be quite fascinated with, and I'm still fascinated with, was this idea of having splashes of bright colors. And you see that on quite a few of our projects. And so you see on the balconies here, we had this feature. We had ACP panels that had laser cut perforations placed on the balconies in alternating patterns, just to kind of create some dynamism on the buildings. And so that's what we had on this balconies: the red, yellow panels, white panels you see there on Lemoria. It's somewhere in Ikate, Lekki, Lagos. And similarly, we had another project. This was headquarters building for Hyprops, an oil and gas company, somewhere not too far from Lemoria. Again, you see the influence of the bright colors, the bright color splashes. I just had this interesting thing about designing like a white, a neutral palette, and then having some interesting splashes of colors. Quite a few of our projects have that, and you see that, and it's like some kind of signature thing we do on some of the projects. So Lemoria was a project that the client had actually built to roof level initially. It looked completely different from this, and then he built it over a long time. He started it, the company started to be building it. Hyprop started to be building it for about 4 or 5 years when they met us. And sometimes when a project is built for so long, it just kind of is overtaken by trends. And so the client wanted a complete different transformation of the build. So they brought us in. We completely redesigned the facade, redesigned the interior. We just literally designed. It was like we just took over Carcass and completely redesigned the building. Interior design. It was one of our first big commissions. I think this came in 2013. And it was, at the time, it was one of our biggest projects, and it was really gratifying. We had this Italian company work on the cladding, very nice, well done cladding, and it came out really good. It took a while anyway. It was completed in 2021. Again, you see the play of colors here, future court, this terrace houses. This is complete now. I think we have some of the pictures, but maybe not the completion pictures on this presentation. But the idea was to have, again, terrace houses, and then have just that little hint of color on it, just to create that accent without necessarily having a very bold expression of color. So this is a future court, eight terrace houses on 4 levels. Each of the terrace houses on 4 levels. Completed. It was completed this year. This was at some stage during the construction, but it's gone further. This was getting closer to completion. It's one project that we really supervised from scratch, had contractors on it, ensure that the work was meticulously delivered, and it's something that gives us joy. And then again, there was around the same time too, there was this other influence that we were beginning to look at. Like you notice the way we treated the slant at the rooftop on this future court project. You see as we move, we also did another residential house for a client. And I think what first started influencing it was we noticed that there was a growing trend for flat roofs, and clients were embracing it, the opportunity to have usable space at the rooftop level. But we also were very concerned about sustainability, very concerned about the way stormwater is managed at the rooftops. And so sometimes we would rather than have the entire roof flat, we may have sections of it that are not flat. And so that was kind of what informed this design. So we had this this triangular form on one section, and fused it with rectilinear forms. Very, very lovely rooftop. The way it turned out is really exciting, very unique, very interesting building that we completed in 2022 for a private client. This is another project that is ongoing. Okay, I didn't include current pictures. So this is not the entire development. So the ones that we worked on were the terrace houses, the ones closer to the lake, surrounding the lake, not the ones at the end. You can see 3 blocks in a U shape at the end. Those were designed by some other architect. So all of these are within Mixstars, Lakaway Golf Lifestyle Estate. So we designed 26 units of cove lofts, the single bedroom lofts intended to be like getaway homes where people just go in, they're enjoying golf. It's almost like a small getaway place, and you have a little just a living room on the ground floor, kitchen, and then just one bedroom. So it's like a whole house is just one big studio apartment of sorts, and overlooking the lake. Fascinating. We've completed one, so they're it's in 4 blocks, the blocks of 6 and 7 respectively. So one of the blocks is completed, and then 2 blocks are currently under construction. And so this is something we're still working on with Lakaway, and it's coming out quite interesting. Again, some changes happened because of time, but it's still quite interesting. Then one of the clients that we've enjoyed working with has been Total Energies, and so we're commissioned to design a sports complex for them in Port Harcourt. This was a work that we did extensively in 2023, just last year. It's been sent in for tender. The client is currently evaluating contractors, hoping to mobilize ASAP. Although in oil and gas, sometimes there are technicalities around the way procurements are done, and stakeholders buying has to be sought first. And so that process is ongoing. And so we're looking forward to this breaking ground. So it's the sports complex included a lot of recreation, pools, sporting areas, football pitch, very interesting projects in Port Harcourt. A mini golf practice area, tennis courts, all of that. And so of course you see the orientation of the sun was very critical in the placement, and then in optimizing parking, optimizing other facilities within the property. During COVID, when after we had the response we had from government over the COVID, I think government recognized that there was a shortage of hospitals that had the capacity for responding to infectious diseases, and so the NNPC in partnership with Seplat Energy commissioned us to design an infectious diseases hospital somewhere in Imo State as part of the intervention and contribution to healthcare in Nigeria. And so we came up with this design for an infectious disease hospital in Imo State. So that was very, very rigorous, very, very rigorous design. When you're working for some oil and gas company, sometimes it's not just about the design, but they have very, very stringent compliances that you have to meet up with. And so that added to the intensity of the work. But that was done, I believe this was 2021. And then again, like I mentioned, sometimes oil and gas procurements, there's a stakeholder engagement. But I was recently informed that it's been awarded to contractors, and so we're waiting for that correspondence with the clients, hopefully getting engaged in stage 3. But not all the time do we get engaged in stage 3. But we're glad to hear that this is going to be breaking ground. Or that's the information that's come to us now. In 2019, we did this work for a company called Amore. No, actually the project was called Amore, not necessarily the company. I think it was Southside Developers or so. So they had this property. They were developing a multiplex that had a variety of event rooms, like they called it a multiplex, like different kinds of meeting spaces, like auditorium style, multiples style, restaurants, different things. And the man behind that company was approaching his birthday, and he realized that they couldn't complete the multiplex in time, and so he decided to focus on a section of the development that was going to be an outdoor event center. And so we got commissioned to design and build this landscape area. It was very, very intricate landscape detailing through the entire project. It was completed in about 6 months in 2019. Hosted a lot of celebrity artists. And then I understand, I think that was sometime last year, getting a lot of calls. Have you heard the Amore Garden showing on, it's trending. I said, what's going on? They said Hilda Bass is doing her cookathon thing at Amore Garden. So it got popular for that. It hosted that event. And so that was Amore Gardens that we designed in 2019. Then in 2020, we did this project, which is one of my favorites. It was the renovation of the Oyo State Council chambers. Now, the Oyo State is one of the oldest states in Nigeria. So this is like the council chambers that was inherited from like Western Nigeria and all of that. So this room that had quite some history, and we're going to retrofit it. And so we were tasked with creating something that's very modern and at the same time retaining some of the history that was in it. So we had there was this wall that had some kind of motif done in concrete. It just didn't look great anymore, but it was something that people who had been in this space recognized it for. And so one of our inspections, I remember one of the permanent secretaries saying to us that this green motif is something that we don't want to lose. And so that green motif then became like something that we took as a pattern that was infused in different aspects of this entire design. we had this backdrop wall behind the seat of the governor, and we also used it for prints on some of the like you will notice this table at the corner here, or some of the furniture, some of the signages. We commissioned an artist to create this sculpture for the state logo. We commissioned artists to do paintings of interesting places within Oyo State. So it wasn't just an interior fit out. There was art in it. Even the coat of arms. The coat of arms you see here in front of the governor's desk. We commissioned artists to do all of that. We chose the placement for the paintings across the room, and even attached little inscriptions below them, creating some history. So for us, we wanted to have a space that people come into and they can appreciate the history through the narration, through the information. And because of this work, there was this door. I don't know if I have it here. There was this door here. This wood carved door. We initially it looked bad when we first walked in there, and the initial thought was, how do we just take this door, put a modern door? But we realized that there was some history there, and as we started cleaning up the door and tidying it up for reinstallation, I then saw an inscription somewhere from, I think it was called Lamidi Faleke or something like that. Falaye. It turned out this door had been done by a renowned wood carver. And his work he even has some carvings displayed at the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. And that's the same artist that had done some of this wood carvings. So we just kind of restored the door and reinstalled it. The place was fit out with audiovisual communication. This was before COVID, and the design was done before COVID. And as though we recognized COVID was coming, we had already designed this for audiovisual teleconferencing, speakers, cameras, built-in screens, and all the works set up to create a very modern space with a lot of technology infused in and all of that. And then we were going to this place, commuting to this place during COVID when everybody was on lockdown. We had a pass that allowed us to go interstate and go to Oyo and go to between Lagos and Ibadan to complete this. And it was such a delightful project to do. We did have this competition entry for a multi-story building in Eco Atlantic, TM High Gardens. This was a competition entry for that. Another fascinating project that we did was a client who invited us to do a project on the hillside in Sierra Leone, Freetown, Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone has some similarities with Lagos in the sense that it is by the ocean. But the major difference is that Sierra Leone is very hilly, almost mountainous. So we have a lot of hilly areas overlooking the water. Really, really natural, very lovely natural scenery. And so we had this building that was more or less carved into the edge of the hill, and it's very rocky. So there's a lot of breaking of stones and all of that. So I visited Sierra Leone sometime in 2022 and saw the site. But the design evolved. The client had started building this smaller one at the bottom of the hill before he met us. Had done not necessarily what you see here, but the client had done something there on the site. But we kind of took that footprint and kind of modified it. And then the client acquired some more land at the back. And then the site, as he kept acquiring land, he now moved up to the road at the top. And so we suggested to him to redesign, to enter from the top, and then have this cascading effect as you come downhill. From the highest point to the lowest point on this site is probably something like 20 meters or so. It's quite steep, very, very steep. Very, very fascinating site of potential. Last, we were in touch with the client. He was preparing the site for construction work to start, and so we hope to get more information so we know we can visit again and see how that's progressing. So these are some of our projects. There are quite a few other projects that we've done, but some of them, for confidentiality reasons, we're not comfortable to display them in public for of this nature. Some of our work for Total Energies are not stuff that we can show in public, and some of our other clients. But there's also quite some other interesting projects that we've done for a variety of our clients. I would say that in spite of the work we're doing, I still think of myself as continuously learning. And one of the things I like to do is to travel and see fascinating buildings. I'm actually having this meeting right now from Malaysia, where I've gone for a conference. And so just, I think yesterday now, because it's past midnight for me here, I was at the Petronas Towers and I took this picture here. And it's just fascinating to visit buildings, interesting architectural buildings, because for me, that's continuous learning as you get opportunities to see buildings of this kind. So that's the Petronas Tower. I'm sure many of us have heard of it. Also, at the time, it was the tallest building in the world. Sometime last year, I visited the headquarters of ExxonMobil in Houston, and this was such a fascinating span without any support. I mean, from one building to the other, it's probably about 70 meters in span, without any support in between. And then the cantilever of this glass box at the top was just unbelievable. The thing about visiting buildings like this, that sometimes it just breaks boundaries in your mind, right? I remember that sometimes maybe somebody on my team might be doing a cantilever that's maybe 3 meters, and I'm like, that's too much, that'd be too expensive, blah blah blah. But after I came back from this visit, I saw this building, and you know what? I just said, I beg, if you want to do cantilever of 3 meters, just do, right? Because I'd seen people were doing cantilever almost 20 meters, and it was looking very, very audacious. So I find out that travel like this, visits to buildings, locally and internationally, really opens your mind, broadens your mind to what is possible, and just makes you know that we've only just begun and the journey is continuous. This was a building I saw in Rwanda. I just was fascinated with the brickwork, the form on the roof. I just thought it was interesting. I took pictures of it. So if you look at my phone, you'll find out that sometimes I have more pictures of buildings than I have of people, of myself. Because everywhere I go, I'm trying to learn something new, trying to see how, even small buildings too, trying to see how they are resolved, trying to see how details were handled, learning new details, learning about new materials, learning about new forms, or just getting new ideas, or sometimes, getting clues to resolve other projects that we're working on. This was a visit to National Arts Theatre, which is currently being renovated earlier this year. Just seeing the fascinating work, ICAR, the consulting architects, Capa de Alberto, the contractors. So we had, as part of ACAN, where Podex is part of ACAN, Association of Consulting Architects. We visited this place, and there was a lot of shared information. So I believe so much in continuing to engage with senior colleagues, engaging with other practices, and learning more and more from what other people are doing, because I find that in architecture is continuous learning, really. This was during my visits to Ibadan while we were doing the council chambers. I was just really fascinated with the detail and the quality of construction and the detail that some of these buildings that were done in the old Western region. Amazing buildings. And if you've ever visited them, they might look old, but when you go close and see the quality of details, very, very fascinating. So every time I go to buildings like this, I'm intrigued to take pictures, to look at the details, look at certain things, and always things to learn. I find out that also participating in conversations with other professionals. I was at the Design Week Lagos earlier this year, and it's about a month ago. Having conversations, and these things continue to help you to expand, stretch your mind, see what other people are doing. Sometimes even designers outside architecture, hearing their thoughts, and it just helps you to keep on expanding what you know, and the conversations that you can have. This was pictures from Design Week Lagos. These were pictures from the ACAN symposium that I attended, but also the panel for some time, I think 2 years ago or so. So my conclusion is this: if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you need to go with a team. I find a lot of architects just think that they can do it by themselves. They think they can be superstars. But I think there's only so much you can do by yourself. And so, yes, you might go fast when you go alone. But if you really want to go far, you need to go with a team. It's important that you surround yourself with people who have skills and knowledge that can build you up. Again, this is another saying I love very much. And it's that one is too small a number to achieve greatness. No accomplishment of real value has ever been achieved by a human being walking alone. And so I think a lot of the work I have just shown you, I owe to the incredible team that I have the privilege of leading and working with. the ideas that come from great minds that come to the table. I mentioned earlier on, it's not my ideas that always stand. It's the best ideas. And so what I've done is create a platform that allows for a lot of brainstorming, a lot of collaborative work, and it just brings out the best in all of us. And so I believe that one man is not enough to do great things. One man is not enough to build a great architecture practice. Nothing of great value, nothing that's truly outstanding has been built by one person working alone. One of the great experiences I had when I visited the office of HOK in Houston some years ago, it was just the sheer size. I saw just it was one branch of HOK, their Houston branch, and they had about 150 to 200 people in that office. And I just saw the phenomenal work that they could do because there's a lot of collaboration. And so I'm a big proponent of collaboration. I'm not a big fan of people just saying, you know what, I want to do my thing. There's nothing wrong with doing your thing, but I'm just simply saying that one is too small a number to achieve greatness. And if you really want to do great things, you should think about being a part of a team, maybe as a leader or maybe as somebody supporting the team, but be a part of a team. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much once again. I do hope that my experience has been able to inspire and enlighten and inspire. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Architect Kelechi. An interesting session. Thank you very much. I think you simply unleashed the genius in you in this presentation. I mean, in about 45 minutes thereabout, you've been able to run through almost about 10 projects. And I mean, I think among all our presenters, you've been among the few persons who have run through lots of projects in a very short time. I saw you pacing through literally about 10 projects. I was right at the point, okay, there was Terranum Ikoyi, there was Petan, there was the Moraga, Amore Gardens, Mobile Headquarters. I mean, you ran through literally about 10 projects in a very short time. I want to say thank you very much. And I think before we start taking questions, just one or two highlights of your presentation. And I think for me, the most important one is the fact that you are a stickler for collaboration. And I think I saw it, when you began the work, I saw it at the end of the work. It's interesting that you were able to celebrate the role of collaboration. And I think, great works really are not done by one person. One person could initiate a concept, an idea, but the fusion of ideas from several quarters brings out the genius in any work, particularly architecture. Because of the different areas of architecture, there is the architecture, there is the design, there is the engineering part of it, there is the art part of it, and so literally one person, all of those diversities are not at their extreme in one person, and so having collaboration across different persons in a practice and office in a team. I mean, you can have somebody who is artistically inclined in contributing to a work may just change the works pattern. Somebody who is just good in concept, and I saw that, which was a light bulb moment for you in your practice from the mining architecture, that you work with an ATO. And I think also from your work, I could see the place of apprenticeship, which I think is something we try to, pride ourselves in on this platform. The place for apprenticeship, learning from the masters. Apparently,
Yes.
The time you spent at ATO was very definitive in your work. It's been a molding
Absolutely.
point for your work. And so
Absolutely.
I think for us, for our participants today, among several others, two key points that I would just mention is the place of collaboration. Great works are done by a great team, and that the place of apprenticeship. Architecture is a very interesting practice, profession. It thrives on you learning from the masters, and I think which is what you've done, and you're still doing by traveling and learning I recall Le Corbusier from one of his books. He traveled to India to just stay there for months. And when the big man emerged on the design stage, he just changed the trajectory of practice. That's because
Yeah.
he went to India for quite, I think, about 6 months or so, and just lived there, watching the people, living with them, seeing the architecture, seeing how they live, seeing how they reason. And so it's been a great presentation, Architect Kelechi. Thank you very much. I think we can now take questions. I've seen
Thank you.
some questions already. Uh, can you help to pull it out? Okay. Uh, so you have the first one. What's the key to keeping architects through this firm building process up to good heights? So that's
Okay,
for you,
great.
Kelechi.
Okay, I was about to type it out, and then I see.
Okay, no.
Okay, I see it's displayed on the screen now. What's the key to keeping architects through this firm building process? I'm not sure I
Through this,
understand the question.
yeah, I think the author meant through this firm building process up to good heights. I think she's saying, what does it take to keep architects to a point of maturity, to a point to where they are good, up to good
Okay.
heights?
Okay. Okay. That's how do you keep architects on your team, I guess, to that point of maturity. So, what I believe is that for a team, for to keep people on a team, you need to just always ensure that they are better off on the team than they would have been on their own. I think that's a balance that must be maintained for being on a team to be worthwhile. People must always believe that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and so and you find out that what it takes to keep someone content at a stage in his life is not the same thing it takes to keep him content as he moves on along the line. And so one thing I try to do is to keep on anticipating the current stage of members of the team and what their new needs might be. At some point is learning, at some point beyond learning is responsibility and opportunities to express themselves. At some point it's training, at some point it's just empowerment. And so we try to do what we can to create the best working environment for for members to stay on the team. But I must say that I've also come to realize that in spite of what you do, there are some people who will still go, not because there's anything wrong, but just because they have their own dreams as well. And so when that is the case, I also respect that and wish them well, and try to have an amicable, cordial, very courteous exit, and then still try to keep a great relationship beyond that point. And so I think that's what I'll say in a nutshell.
All right, fantastic. I think there was another question. Okay, so this is Mola Kuye. I think you may know him. He's asking, what's the design philosophy?
Okay, so I get that. I get that a lot. So I would say my approach to design is eclectic in the sense that it's composed of different things. I'm not fixated on doing things in a particular style, but I would say my philosophy is that great design at its best should look simple. When a design has been excellently executed and resolved, the outcome should look simple. When something still looks a bit too complicated or too busy, I believe it hasn't been fully designed. It hasn't been enough time hasn't been spent on it. I think a great design should be graceful. It should look simple. It should seem so simple that people who look at it will think that anybody could have thought about it. But the reality is that it's just graceful. So that's how I'll describe my idea and approach to design. I like things a bit minimalist. I like things very graceful. I like things very thoughtfully put together. When I see a building, I can tell a building that a lot of thought went into, and a building that not much thought went into. So that's how I describe it. But I would say my style is eclectic in the sense that I'm not fixated on designing in one particular style. I believe strongly that our role as architects, or rather the outcome of projects, is like a marriage between the client and the architect, right? When there's a marriage and a child is born, many times the child carries resemblance to both parents, both the father and the mother. So for us as architects, when we have that marriage with a client and the outcome being our project, there are certain aspects of the project that clearly carry the resemblance to the style and experience of the architect. But there would also be things that have been clearly influenced by the client, which is why I believe also that for a project to be very successful, sometimes it's not just about the architect alone, it's also about the quality of the client. And I found that some of our most successful projects have been projects where we had, by our own parameters, people who would describe as the perfect clients who are very articulate about what they want and at the same time respect you enough to allow you to interpret it, respect your advice, respect your professionalism, give you the freedom to express that idea and then give feedback, right? When you've done it, they give feedback, they review, give you feedback about how much it complies with their vision. And then, and give you room again to go back and interpret. So there's an iterative process that brings out the best. That's that in a nutshell.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, yes, a question from Mr. D. So I think from your conceptual sketches, it's evident that most of your concepts, it develops from the form. Would you say you have one of the design principle, form follows function?
Not entirely. Not entirely, to be honest. I think form. No. So if my design evolves from the form, then it should make me a proponent of function follows form, not form follows function, right? But I think I approach design from both sides, and I approach design from the form. I also approach it from the function. And then many times it's like you're designing from two ends, and then usually there's a meeting point. And sometimes that meeting, depending on the building type, that meeting point might be closer to the form, in which case the influence of form is stronger. And then for some other building types, the influence of function is stronger. I would say that idea of the balance between function and form is dependent on the building type. I would say, for instance, with the New Dawn Baptist Church, for a church building, that's one of the kind of buildings that lends itself to iconic forms. But with the Seplat Hospital, for instance, that's a building type that lends itself a lot more to function, right? So the response for me would depend on the nature of the work. But I do like projects at the end of the day, where possible. I like projects to be distinct and to have where when an iconic visual is possible. Yeah, we'll strive to do that, but not every project lends itself to such expression. That's my view.
All right, thank you. I think okay, we still have one more from the queer. Yes.
What would I say is the greatest challenge of architecture in Nigeria? I'll describe it as the economy. Yeah, I would say the economy will probably be by great. There are many challenges I can mention: economy, the advancement of the construction industry, but I will just put it primarily at the economy because many Nigerians think Nigeria is a rich country, but the statistics don't put Nigeria as a rich country, especially when you look at it as GDP per capita. Right? Nigeria's GDP exceeds the GDP of many African countries, for many countries in the world. But because we have over 200 million people, if we share the money that we earn by the number of people, that's what is GDP per capita. It's not a lot. And so you find out that the sheer funds available to spend on construction projects in Nigeria is not the same as in many developed countries. Like I said, I'm doing this call from Malaysia, and I can see some of the projects that have been done. And I realize that some of these things are incredibly cost intensive. So I would say that if the economy was a lot more robust, perhaps there would be a lot more opportunity for expression, and it would also attract even more sophistication in the construction industry. So I would say the size of the economy is probably the greatest challenge of architecture in Nigeria. But there are other challenges like the quality of construction work, the availability of technology, and so on.
Right. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm trying to see if we have Okay, so we see have one more question. Yes.
So, what would be my advice to young architects trying to start up practice? Would you advise with sourcing for funds to set up the assets required for practice? Well, I'll have a lot of things to say to young architects who want to set up practice. One of them is the architect should ensure that they have the right foundation, they have the right training. I think my view is that it's important to be well trained if you want to, before you set out. I don't even advise people just get out of school and jump into setting up practice. I wouldn't advise that, because I think even if you do learn, right, like it's possible to be running a practice and still be learning. Even if that is your approach, the learning process is a lot slower. I cannot explain to you how much knowledge I had by putting in 5.5 years with ATO, and then the 2 years I put in other places before that time. Or was it two? Yeah, 2.5 years I put in other places for that time. When you work in a practice, it allows you to observe how things are, observe what to do and what not to do. It helps you to see the design side and construction side, also even see the business side, because the business side is also key. And sometimes it also gives you experience with suppliers, with contractors, with processes. It's just so much, right? And I have also noticed that if you see some of the younger architecture firms that are thriving today, go and check. Most of the people who are driving those firms worked with big firms, big established firms. There are not many architects that I know of who have jumped straight into starting up a firm that are doing well, that are really thriving. I can't even think of any as we speak. I'm not saying there are none, but I can't think of any. But I can tell you multiple that I know that have paid their dues. And then that's one thing I would say: make sure you have the right experience. Um, and then I would also say that please don't be hung up on the idea that you have to start a firm. I don't think everybody necessarily has to set up a firm. But of course, I also recognize that people who have set up firms also need to be liberal enough to um, admit members of their team into partnership. Because I think that's also what drives a lot of people to leave firms when they don't see an opportunity for participation in ownership. And I think that's something that founders of practices need to be open enough to do, to allow people who have come of age to participate in ownership. So, but to go back to your question, would I advise you to source funds? Um, Not necessarily. I think architecture is one of those things that you don't really need a lot of money to start, but you need a client base. You need a client base, right? You need clients. That's for me. That's the most important thing you need to start. You need to have clients who will keep you busy and pay you enough to pay the bills and to run the practice. And when you have that, and you start from that, you start from somewhere, then you can build on that. You can layer on that and keep going forward.
All right. So let me see if we have. Okay, we have one more question. You're not yet 50. Okay, so what was the secret to learning the great commissions?
So I guess Z dimensions knows my age. So Z dimensions is declaring to me my age, right?
Ah,
Well, but it's true. I'm not yet 50 anyway. What would you consider as a secret to landing great commissions? It's not one secret. There are many things. But I think one of the important things is to know who your clients are, right? What I mean by know your clients are, know who fits the profile of the client, the kind of clients you want to have. You need to know who fits that profile. And when you know who fits that profile, then you need to ask yourself, where are they? And how do I make myself visible to them? So I'll give you an example of something we did at some time. There was some years ago, there was a conference I attended, and I attended that conference because I had recognized that some of the people who I wanted to have as my clients were some of those guys who are owners of indigenous oil and gas companies, right? Because at that point, I was younger than I am now. I knew that many of them can afford to spend a lot more than the average person. Um, Many of them would not mind having a younger architect who can deliver great value to them. So they're willing to pay more, provided you can give the value. And so ahead of an oil and gas conference where those kind of guys were meeting, and I went and registered for the conference and attended, and I was just moving around talking to. One of them was my client, so from that one, I started moving around that circle. And today, from that circle, from that conference, we've done about five or six, maybe five or more projects from people in that particular circle. And it just started from me just saying, I'm going for that conference. So I think it's important for you to recognize who your clients are and then try to see how you can connect with them. So that's just one. I think that's one of the ways. Another thing I would say is you need to especially if you're the CEO of your business, you need to ensure that in all your networking, people know what you do. I say to people that it's not you can't know me and not know I'm an architect, because I bring it into every conversation. When I meet people, in fact, even in church, sometimes when I'm talking in church or ministering in church, I somehow even mention architecture. Okay. Family conversations, friends, old students associations, whatever it is, somehow I kind of make it known to people that I'm an architect, so that when they think of architects, when they think of an architect, when they think of the service of an architect, it's top of mind. Then another thing I would say is also very important for landing commissions is to do good work. Right? When you get a job, when you have opportunity to do a job, just realize that part of the profit that you can take from that job is not necessarily from that job, but from the jobs that can come from it. So sometimes there are times when you just have to go the extra mile to ensure the job is done well, even when it costs you something. Try not to be too sparing. Try not to be, how's the word? Try not to be sparing. Yeah, I don't know if that's the right word. Don't try to spare cost too much, right? Sometimes you have to spend to put in your best, and that spend could be whether you're not. It's not necessarily when you're building, right? It could also be when you're doing a competition. Like, you need to see the way in Podex we do competitions. We're very intense. We're very intense in competition. We spend, right? It's spending, like, staff doing overtime. They're paid overtime. They're paid. They're giving maybe sometimes buy refreshments. Sometimes we do things to keep the people comfortable while they're doing the work, right? And it's not a job that we have yet, but we recognize that that's what it takes sometimes to get work. So you need to be big on quality. You need to be big on making the best impression of every opportunity you have, because that's how one commission yields the next one. And I think referrals are probably one of the best ways to get commission. So when you do a great job for one happy client, that happy client refers you to another. And sometimes that's the most effective way of getting more work.
Great. Well, I think this might have to be our last question for time. So I think maybe you take this question.
Okay, could you lend your thoughts towards the secret of running and maintaining architectural practice despite the challenges of consistent commissions? Okay, I would say one of the things I would say is this: is financial discipline, right? It's important that you separate your personal finances from the finance of the firm. I can tell you for free that in the years that Podex has been running, I earn a salary, right? I can't just go into Podex accounts and pull money and say, yeah, I have school fees. I pull money, I have a car to buy. We've created a structure that doesn't allow me to just do that. So you have to try to separate your personal account from the company account. That way you're able to build a financially robust organization. That's crucial, right? That's crucial. And I think many people make that mistake. And so they're not able to keep paying salaries. And so they're not able to keep office operations running. And it starves the company. It starves the company of its lifeblood. It's important to ensure that your company is financially healthy. Very, very key. At some point, we decided that for our company, we would try to ensure that at every given time we have at least enough funds in our savings to pay 6 months' salary, even if we don't have a commission. Right at the beginning of this year, I could say that we could pay 1 year's salary even if we didn't earn even if we didn't earn anything. So you have to ensure that is something you pay attention to, the health, financial health of the practice. You know, firms during COVID lost staff because they couldn't pay, things like that. So those are some of the things that you need to do. But of course, again, you also need to ensure that you diversify your client base. Don't put all your hope on one client, right? Diversify your client base. Sometimes you may have one great client who is paying and you just neglect the rest. You always have to try and ensure that you have your fingers or your operations in different industries. Sometimes one industry tightens up and the other ones, you need the other ones to survive, right? So those are things I would say are important for to thrive in a difficult economy.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Architect Kelechi. We've
Thank
done
you.
1 hour, 15 minutes. Personally, I would have loved to take more questions because I mean, it's been interesting. It's as if we shouldn't stop. But for part of our structure, our system, we like to keep our videos usually about 1 hour, max 1 hour, 20, 15 minutes. But I think you've done a fantastic job, Architect Kelechi. And I want to commend you for great work at Podex. And
Thank you.
interestingly, just to let the audience know, we met, I think, about maybe like 13, 14 years ago at our professional examination center.
Yes, that's
Unilag.
correct. Yes, that's correct.
And then I think we lost touch for many years until
Yeah.
a few, I think about 2 months thereabout back. And I think catching
Yes.
up with you, Architect Kelechi, has been fantastic. I
Thank
want to say
you.
thank you very much. Learned a lot from from you today, and I think to our audience, critical things you've mentioned about the fact that people need to grow in practices before they set up theirs. And I believe I'm a stickler for the art of apprenticeship. It may look the traditional way, but if you must go very far in architecture, I think the way is just that people need to learn from the masters. I mean, I mentioned about the fact that you learn about design, about construction, and more importantly about business of design itself, which won't just which you won't learn just from the blues. So I think your path is a model that I think a lot of younger designers, architects can follow. And like you said, not everyone must start a practice, and I believe in the school of thought of firms like Gensler having about 2,000 architects. Firms like
Wow.
HOK, yeah, that's my model practice. Yeah. And I think these are kind of conversations which you begin to have on not just about star architects. I mean, they are great, but I think when you look at, I mean, how are the banks being able to have about
Yeah.
1,000,
Yeah.
3,000,
That's
4,000,
yeah.
and practices like in architecture, you just get stuck at 15, 10, 20, and all that. And so I think that conversation about the fact that we can build big practices is one that, and of course, giving people a stake in the practice, giving them some kind of ownership and some kind of progression is
Yeah.
is fundamental. So once again, like Kelechi, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank
It's
you.
been
Thank you. So please
fantastic.
follow me on you can please follow me on Instagram at Kel Onyike on Instagram. I'm not that active on other social media. I'm on LinkedIn as well, but I think Instagram is probably the one I'm most active on. I'm on Facebook as well, but
Okay.
been a while. It's been a while I went there. And please follow Podex Associates as well. Podex Associates on Instagram.
Okay. If you can type it, that would be great. You can type,
Okay.
yeah, you can type it so that it can be on the screen, and then our audience can always view it thereafter. And okay, I think it's somewhere on the side. I think our admin can also help to just flag it on the screen. Okay. So admin can, oh, good. Aha, right. So you can see on the screen, Architect Kelechi. All right, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I want to say, and by next month we have another presentation by another young architect, Architect Shegun Onipeku. And then by January, we're starting the year with architect Ladi Lewis. It's a senior in the practice.
Yeah.
It's a big shot. Getting him was a dream come true. Very simple man. I just spoke to him and just agreed. So we look up
Awesome.
to see him in January, and we have another colleague by December. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone. I see some of my guys. I saw Adidoyi and a few others online. Thank you for coming on board. Thanks to everyone. I wish I could tell who and who are on the call, but maybe when I watch the
Yes,
recording, I'd love to see that.
yes, we'll
Thank you
see.
for joining us today. It's been an honor and a joy sharing with all of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Delioye.